Welcome to Golden Goal TV. Yes, we are back for a quick Premier League review show to review the bank holiday Premier League action. So I'm joined by George. It's just me and you, sir. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, mate. Was a very weird weekend of football, but we'll get into that. I've got a lot to say about the Arsenal game.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to talk about that because I didn't actually see many of the games this weekend. I've seen a few, but I did not see many of the 3 o'clock ones, apart from seeing the scores, which were an interesting tale. There were some interesting results. If you're a Super Six player, and you did anything along my predictions, yeah, you might have only gotten like 2 points over the whole round. So yeah, it's a fairly quick one. We are live on YouTube, so if you do fancy dropping a comment, you're more than welcome to. But yeah, it's just us. I mean, we're taking it easy because of the banger we've got coming up on Friday, which we'll talk about at the end of the show. So first I want to talk about is Chelsea Luton Town. That's the first game, which we were giving you live updates for the brief time we were on Friday's show. And it finished Chelsea 3, Luton Town 0. I'll let you know what I think in a minute, because I think when it comes to the scoreline, I don't think it truly represents certain parts of the game. What did you think of it? Apart from your very good luck in fantasy with Marlon Gusto.
Yeah, but then I did put Marlon Gusto in for Matt Cash, so yeah, it kind of balanced itself. But about the Chelsea, I thought Chelsea took some of their chances. To be fair, I thought Raheem Sterling looked very good. He was a bit impressive the last game, and then like this game, he actually put those chances away. So maybe under Poch, he's going to start to be one of the linchpins of the Chelsea attack. I thought Nick Jackson done well. I can see why he frustrates people because the amount of chances he has, and then he puts one away. I'd find it hard, and it's not meant for disrespect, but I don't think I see Luton beating many teams this season. I'll say that, and they'll probably beat Arsenal and West Ham and all that. But they remind me. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember like when I can't remember what team it was, but they basically just come up with loads of Championship players, didn't they? So they remind me a bit like that. So I don't know if how good they'll do. They haven't got a point yet. I don't think. But
No, then there is 0 points out of 3 games, together with Everton and Sheffield United.
Yeah. Oh, they've only played 2, haven't they? Because the
yeah, that is true. So yes, 0 from 2.
So I hope they do stay up, obviously, because it's another Southern team. But yeah, they're not clinical for me yet, and we know how punishing the Premier League is. You have to take your chances. So I think Chelsea have a bit of an easier run now coming up. So that might help them to grow some confidence. Where Luton have got West Ham at home, so yeah, that could either go one or 2 ways, really. But yeah, it was decent. It was a bit of light entertainment to watch on a Friday night after the show.
Yeah, I think it was quite an interesting. And when it comes to Luton, I think some people probably did expect Luton to surprise a few teams, and that still might happen. Let's be honest; they've only played 2 games of the season, so there's 36 games to go still. But I will say this: Sterling did really well, and I like what I saw, and I think, I mean, yes, like I said on Friday, not many Chelsea players looked good last season, but Sterling I was not impressed with particularly, especially that, we bought him and we bought what we thought was going to be quite a promising player. And last season he did not deliver it. But I thought he did really well. I thought he's the example of what people say about Pochettino, that Pochettino is the manager that will get the best out of the players he has. And I think that is what he's doing with Sterling. So that was good to see. Marlon Gusto, promising talent and still a bargain on fantasy because this price has not gone up over the weekend. So if you do want to, if you do want a player to bring in to your fantasy team, strongly suggest that. Yeah, Jackson did well. But I do think that at one point when Chelsea were 1-0 up, Luton had plenty of chances to get back into the game. And there were times where if they took these chances, because we sometimes let them too close, they could have easily gotten back into that game. And I think it's fair enough if you do it against teams like Luton, but you don't want to be making the same mistakes against the bigger teams. That was probably the only thing I would say. Apart from that, I was fairly impressed with us. I thought it was a good performance. It was a decent win. Puts us in a good position because our next game is against Forest, which again is fairly winnable. I think we've got Bournemouth coming up as well after the international break.
Yeah.
So we've got a few winnable games coming up, which I think would put us in a good position. So I'm fairly happy with that. I think it's not a bad result. Yeah, it was pretty good. When it comes to Luton, I said in the predictions show they'll probably be relegated, but whether they will or won't surprise some teams remains to be seen. I think they still could. I think we've seen enough of the Premier League over the last few seasons to know that the way it's turned out is quite unpredictable and anything can happen. So it's very much an option. Right, so we'll move on to talk Bournemouth, Tottenham. Not much really to mention apart from Tottenham having a very good start to the season. They've only conceded 2 goals in 3 games and scored 6 in 3 games, I believe. So clearly, whatever Ange is doing, I mean, it's not strikers scoring goals for Tottenham, that's for sure, but Ange Postecoglou seems to be doing something right at Tottenham.
Yeah, he's had a good start. To be fair, I watched the Bournemouth game on the train, and I thought Bournemouth had chances as well. Is that what we're saying? If you're not clinical against the better teams, you're going to be punished. I think everything used to run through Harry Kane. We know that. I think the new style of the show at Spurs, and I obviously don't like saying it because I don't like Spurs, is James Maddison. I think he's been an absolute brilliant signing for them. He's just he's scoring, he's assisting, he's just everything's going through him. And then you have Destiny. I'm going to probably get this name wrong, but Destiny Udogie.
I've heard it pronounced as Udogie, although I struggle to not call him Doggy on a regular basis.
Yeah, doggy style. So yeah, he's a good. He seems to come into the game and into the team and done well. So they've got some decent players. I think they can get through these games, but I think there's going to be games when they're really tight, and that's when they're probably going to miss Kane. So, in those games, a 0-0, and Kane comes up with a winner or something. So, and I would say it'd be nice to see Tottenham actually play against a team that are really good, that are in form. At the minute, I don't think they have. Obviously, I know they played United, but United have been shocking at the start of the season. It'd be nice to see. I think you see your tests when you see Tottenham play teams like, say, Man City, your Arsenal's, the Liverpool's, Chelsea, all them teams. But yeah, Bournemouth. I think it's just the manager they've got is really, really good. They've brought in some really good players. I think Tyler Adams is going to be really, really important for Bournemouth in that 6th role. And you're saying about cheap players. Bournemouth have got that Semenyo player, and he's only 4.5 and he's a striker. So if you ever wanted to have someone who's playing, if you wanted to go heavy on other positions, you got him. But yes, but I think I will say it, like the players you mentioned, I think the player that goes under the radar is people like Basuma and that Sa. Like I think they've come into the team and done quite well. So I can't remember who Spurs I got this weekend. Is it Burnley?
Yeah, Burnley, Tottenham. They play Burnley this weekend.
Yeah, so like I said, obviously that'll be another decent game. And then they've got Sheffield United, and then I think they've got us. So yeah, we'll see. Obviously we'll go on to Arsenal afterwards, but hopefully our form can be a bit better. But at the end of the day, Tottenham are just doing what they've got to do. And Bournemouth, I think Bournemouth will be fine. I just think they just give them a bit of time, but they'll do some teams this season. Bournemouth, like they play some nice football.
Yeah, I agree. When it comes to Bournemouth, I think that's one of the teams that can shock a few teams. And to be fair, where they have been in the Premier League before, they have certainly upset teams before, and have caused a few shocks. And I think the same will happen. As for Basuma, yes, a few Tottenham fans have been I've seen praising Basuma. He's a very, very different player to the player they purchased initially. I think he's been doing, if Basuma has been doing a lot better, and that's what I've heard a lot of Tottenham fans say. He's actually playing the way they wanted him to play when he first came to the club. So he's definitely grown into someone under Postecoglou, under the very brief tenure of Postecoglou. At the moment, he's only still new, but he's already. I've had Tottenham fans saying to me, it's scary to see them actually attack and defend well in the first 3 games of the season. So clearly not used to it, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Burnley, you never know. Yesterday they weren't exactly convincing against Villa until they scored a goal, and then it all changed. So I think it's worth not underestimating. Well, we move on to Arsenal 2, Fulham 2. Now, there's not many games that I expected a shock, and I didn't expect a shock in this one. So I'll get on to you, George, with that one. What on earth happened? What happened with the game? Because I was not following it. I only saw the goals, and I just was a bit confused.
It's what's been going on for a while. We concede so early in the game, so you're behind the 8 ball already. It was stupid by Saka, and Ramsdale's just not there. Like I know Ramsdale, people blaming him, but I don't blame him as much. But it all starts with the selection for me, mate. I'm a huge fan of Arteta, but I blame him for that result on the weekend. As I've said numerous times in the group, Thomas Partey at right back does not work. You have Gabriel on the bench, who was one of our best centre halves last season. But what I think he's trying to do is fit in that plan the back 3, and then Havertz more advanced. But nothing on Havertz. I don't think he's actually been playing that bad. But some Arsenal fans just have agendas. But I think Arsenal need to go back to having your Ben White at right back, then Zinchenko or whoever at left back, Gabriel Saliba, and put Partey, Rice, and Ødegaard in that midfield, because that's what their positions are. I wasn't too annoyed with Trossard starting instead of Eddie, because we've been calling for Trossard to start, but Eddie come on, scored. It was a story of players who Arsenal fans have absolutely rinsed, like Nketiah and Fabio Vieira come on, changed the game, got us winning the game, and then a stupid set piece again. But then if you have the original back 4 playing, I don't think that happened. So I think Arteta will probably learn. I'm hoping we'll go out and get a defender before Friday that can play left back or centre defence, just as a bit of cover. But we'll see what happens with that. No disrespect to Fulham, they've done what they had to do. They played okay, but Arsenal were all over them, mate. This is the issue. Like we had like over 20 shots, they just couldn't put them away. So it was one of those things. It's frustrating because you want to win all your home games, but one thing I will say, as we'll come to later, City only just beat a Sheffield United team. So Arsenal haven't played well all season at the start. So it's like Gary Neville was saying, they're just retuning. So they've just got to find that fluidity. So as soon as that happens, I think we'll be fine. Like I'm disappointed that we drew, but I'd rather us draw than lose. And I think they just need to go back to basics and start getting like we have Man United on the weekend. For me now, I feel like we have to win that to go into the international break with some confidence.
Yeah, I think it's one of these things where a lot can be made out on a base of one result, but and I think because of the way Man City are, and you need to match their result basically in order to keep up with them. That's what team they are. Man City are capable of dropping points, and we will briefly mention this game later because I think it's worth pointing that out. But we will move on to Man United. Yeah, I mean, they won against Forest. They finished Man United 3, Nottingham Forest 2. But the fact that they conceded 2 quick goals against Forest very quickly, you have to wonder what's going on at Manchester United. I mean, Rashford actually did something in this game, which is nice, but...
I thought you meant dive.
Huh?
I said I thought you meant dive then.
Well, so they've done a few things, but United are having a woeful season. I mean, to say they just about beat Nottingham Forest is not what a team that's in the champion that is hoping to compete in the Champions League this season, and they'll find out their opponents this week. That's not what you want to. That's not what United fans surely wants to see. I don't know. None of us United fans, but what did you think of that one?
I think the problem is they don't have a midfield. Like I was talking to Abdi about it yesterday. Actually, like there's no one in that midfield. Like obviously, when you have Mason Mount playing as well, I know he's not been playing, but that makes Bruno Fernandes a bit deeper. So he wasn't as having to be as deep, and then you saw him get his goal, even though if it was a penalty or whatever. But I just think it's one of those things. They haven't started that great. Obviously, I'm appreciative that they don't have Luke Shaw. They've got a new goalkeeper, so it takes a lot of adjusting. They don't have a settled right back, really. It's either Wan-Bissaka or Dalot. They haven't got a striker yet, so it's just ironing out for them. This is why I think the Arsenal Man United game could be interesting because it could be like so tight, or it could just be like a free for all because both teams can't defend at the minute. I felt Forest were unlucky. Like they'd done really well to go 2-0 up, and then as soon as one goal goes in, it's that slippery slope, isn't it? But for me, like for United to probably be, I feel like they need another midfielder. I think if they go in with Casemiro, Eriksen, McTominay, and Mount, I think that's who they have. I think they're going to struggle because Casemiro might be good, but he can't carry that midfield. He's 30. What is he? 33. He might be older than that.
31 years old.
31. So like he's not. Yeah, he's still a quality player, but he can't do it on his own. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, I'd be slightly concerned. I think, like, I don't think you should be concerned as much with your team yet, but after this international break going into November as well, October, November, you kind of start to see where your teams are going, what direction. I always remember Fergie and Wenger, they said they never really looked at the table until Christmas. And I think that's probably the best way forward. But obviously, you can be in a title race or battling for top four, but you can easily fall away from it if you have a few dodgy results at the start.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you need to match the teams you want to be up there with. And Man United need to match the results of the teams that are in the top four at the moment. And yeah, I think it's too early to tell. It's like when you do a lot of these review shows, one of the common phrases that pops up is it's early days. And it is, because there's still players that teams can buy. At the end of the day, the transfer window doesn't close until Friday. Now, whether there are inklings of said teams buying players, that's a different story. But the point is really that it's just all depends to me. Yeah, Man United don't have a midfield, and the fact that they haven't bought much in that area doesn't, show much. I mean, they've bought Mason Mount, and is he now injured?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's now injured, and when he was fit, he didn't really do much. They've got Arsenal next, and I have to say, okay, Arsenal had their blip against Fulham, but if I was to pick a team who I'd imagine quicker winning this game, it's probably going to be Arsenal, because United, that was a very lucky win for United. Now, there's no denying Forest have done good things in that game, and they probably deserved more out of it, people would say, and they probably did. But it's a tricky one for United. You almost kind of think that, if you can criticize Maguire all you want, but would he have made a difference? I don't know.
The thing is that with the Arsenal-Man United game as well, what Arsenal might be struggling defensively, but attacking-wise, we're still creating chances. It's just like on another day, Arsenal probably could have put 5 or 6 past Fulham.
And that's when United defensively aren't the best. So
because it could be interesting.
Because of attacking Arsenal's attacking form, it could be a very interesting one. It's at United. It's Old Trafford, isn't it?
The Emirates. So that's right. Like, if Arsenal go back to Partey, Rice, and Ødegaard as a midfield three, I think I don't want to not being big-headed, but I think that's a hell of a lot better than Casemiro, Bruno, and whoever else plays there.
I mean, going to play Arsenal at the Emirates is a challenge on enough as it is. If you're going to be woeful like that, but we'll talk about it another time when it comes to the preview. But yeah, certainly potential miss for Forest, and lucky red for United there. We'll move on to the next game, and it is Brighton versus West Ham. Now, it finished West Ham 3, Brighton 1 at the Amex. George, I found that quite a surprise result for me. I mean, fair play, West Ham had a good performance against Chelsea, but I think a lot of people expected Brighton to go pick up the points, but that's not what happened.
No, I'm not going to lie, I was a bit surprised myself because West Ham has started quite well. And Brighton have been putting everyone to the sword, but no, not today. Not this game. What I found amazing as well, West Ham only had 26% possession, but they took their chances. I think James Ward-Prowse has put West Ham on a different level, to be honest. Like, he's just so dangerous, isn't he, Ward-Prowse, with his set pieces. And I think he's broke the record now. I think he's got more than Beckham did in the Premier League, so that just shows how good he is. And then, obviously, I know he didn't play, but Mohamed Kudus going to West Ham is a bit of a steal. But yeah, they seem to be getting Antonio singing the tune as well, which they didn't do at all last season. So, and this is the thing with Brighton. Brighton will have all this possession. This is what they've got to work out this season. But teams will try and work them out and frustrate them. And then we've seen it already, like with West Ham doing that. So they need to realise you can have all the possession in the world, but if you don't put the ball in the net, you're not going to win the game. I can't remember who Brighton who they got. Newcastle. So it's another hard game for them. They're coming into their hard games. yeah, it was. I don't even know like how to say why it went wrong, or if it was just one of those games where West Ham put their chance where Brighton didn't. I think it was more that.
Yeah, I think it was a bit more of that. I mean, I've not actually seen the game itself, but there's definitely plenty there. I mean, Ward-Prowse is a very good signing. To be honest, when it comes to West Ham and signings, the West Ham were heavily criticised for majority of the transfer window because of not investing as well and kind of, buying Declan Rice and not investing that money quickly. But you have to look at their signings and you have to think that although it was a late one, their transfer window is going to finish in quite a style. And I think the way they're playing, it's certainly looking like a lot better West Ham. I could say that after the last three games, a lot of people that probably said West Ham for a surprise relegation candidate might be slowly changing their minds to that, because they are not really looking like a surprise relegation candidate when pretty much the newly promoted teams in majority are sitting on 0 points. So to me, West Ham are doing pretty well, and James Ward-Prowse definitely a good player for fantasy team as well. And I think it's just about the right time West Ham are coming into form, because Europa League's got to start soon enough. And they will need to be as good as they can to see how far they can go. And speaking of Europa League, when it comes to Brighton, really, as I've said multiple times, they want to win as many games as they can going before the Europa League really kicks in full time, because that's when they will be tested. That's where their kind of squad depth will be tested and their energy levels will be tested. And they're guaranteed to drop some points against teams they probably don't expect to drop points against once the Europa League fixtures kick in. And I think dropping points now, it's not ideal at all, and it's not recommended. Yeah, you can't avoid it sometimes, but I think for Brighton, getting 3 points where you can, while you can, and while you don't have that extra fixture pressure every week is important. And this might not be a big miss. That them 3 points drop might not be a big miss for them, or it might. We just never know. But it's one of these games where credit to West Ham, but Brighton should have not lost that game. But again, that does not take anything from West Ham, because they've done well and they deserve that win, and it's going to help them a lot. Moving on to the next game, and this I want to talk about. I picked this one over the Burnley game because Sheffield United, Man City. I don't think many people saw Manchester City 2, Sheffield United 1 as a result. I was watching that game and I certainly thought Manchester United had a lot of possession, but not done much with it. Haaland missed a penalty. And Sheffield United, the longer the game went on, the more of a spring in a step they got on. Obviously, they scored first. And although I believe they scored first, no, Haaland scored. Then Sheffield United equalised, and then, Man City quickly scored again by Rodri. But George, I don't know what you think, but to me, it just shows that Manchester City, they can be got at if they're not careful.
Yes, I've been saying it for a while. I've said it on previous shows. Man City defensively can be scored against. People forget that. And I thought that game, Man City were all over them. Didn't have a kick in the game, Sheffield United, until that goal went in. But then, fair play to them. They give City a good go there to bring people like Phil Foden on, who originally wasn't meant to be playing. So I think Sheffield United could be a bit tricky for some teams, especially at Bramall Lane. But yeah, like City, the stars they have it's going to be hard, isn't it? But this is what I was trying to say about the Arsenal Fulham game. Like people jump on it and say, "Oh, it's a bad result" and all that. Yeah, it is, but if Rodri, and I know people can say, "Oh, but it didn't happen." But if Rodri doesn't score, City draw with Sheffield United. That's how easy it could happen. So, in that sense, like you just got to. It's really cliche. Play each game as it comes.
And I mean, when Sheffield United equalised, I just kind of sat there thinking, if this was to finish that like that, that could have been a big, big blow for Manchester City. And it just shows that, again, the wonderful unpredictability of the Premier League. Yeah, City won in the end, but it was nowhere near easy. And there's a lot of City fans that are so self-entitled that they probably would have had, 3 points guaranteed before the game even started. And it's one of these things, I'm kind of surprised that Sheffield United have 0 points out of a possible 9 at the moment because of the way they played so far. So it'd be interesting to see how they will do in their next games, because I think they've got a big 6 point. Again, it's funny to call them 6 pointers at this stage, but they've got a huge game against Everton. After that game, one of the teams that's currently on 0 points is going to have some points. So at the moment, I see Sheffield United picking up points rather than Everton. But yeah, it's an interesting one. And I think it's that sign to people who are chasing Manchester City and wanting to keep up with them that, although not this week, there could be a game week where Man City are surprised by a team that basically, because at the end of the day, when you go and play Manchester City, Sheffield United probably went into that game knowing fully well that no one expects them to win. No one expects them to do anything against the Premier League champions. And as I've said before, that's sometimes the team's most dangerous weapon. It's the fact that there's no pressure on them. If they lose, people are just going to go, well, what's bound to happen? But if they win, that's pretty much then going, that was not something anyone expected. It's having no expectation is sometimes your biggest boast as a team. And you could see that Sheffield United weren't afraid to give Man City a go. They weren't afraid to take the game to them. And I think that's what's nice to see, teams not fearing Man City just because of who they are and how much they've achieved and how much money they've got behind them, which I think is pretty good. We move on to the final game, Newcastle versus Liverpool. It finished Liverpool 2, Newcastle 1, with Virgil van Dijk getting sent off. And you could argue Trent Alexander-Arnold should have gotten sent off or was lucky to not get sent off, depending which way you look at it. George, what are your thoughts on the game?
I definitely thought Trent should have been sent off. Like, I don't see how, if I'm honest, I don't see how Tomiyasu does against Palace, but then Trent doesn't. I thought Virgil van Dijk was a straight red. There's not really any arguments there. But then I just thought Newcastle had the game won. Like, it was won for them, and then they threw it away. I just think I didn't expect Darwin Núñez to come on and score 2 goals. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, I don't even know where it kind of went wrong for Newcastle. Like, they just didn't take their chances again. I think taking Sandro Tonali off changed the game a little bit, but it's all about consistencies with the ref again, isn't it? Like, it's going back to that again, like, because the way Klopp was behaving, and I will say, if that's Arteta, he gets sent off, and we don't hear the end of it. But Klopp seems to be able to get away with everything for me.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I think refereeing, again, it's frustrating that we do it every time because it's hard to not talk about the refereeing situation. But when these things happen, where like you, I thought Trent should have seen red, and the fact he didn't, you just do wonder why that didn't happen. But you can say that pretty much in most Premier League games.
It's just like, if you're sending Tomiyasu off, then why are you not sending Trent off? So, like, I'm not saying that. If you were saying to me, do I think Tomiyasu is a red? No, I don't. But people could say I'm biased. But fine, you give him that red, but then do the same for Trent Alexander-Arnold.
I agree, and I think, yeah, it's consistency again, and it's what's not in what there isn't enough of, and what's not happening really, and every team will have a different view on it depending on the size of your club. That seems to have an impact on people's beliefs, but it's one of these tricky things. But when it comes to Newcastle and Liverpool, do you think that game was going to be tricky for both teams? Really, with Newcastle, do you think they will be up there competing against Manchester City for the title?
No, I don't. I think it's too far for them at the minute. I don't understand how they didn't beat Liverpool. Like, you think they're 1-0 up, Liverpool down to 10 men. They're at home. I think Newcastle was at home, weren't they?
Yes.
And then they lose 2-1. Like, that don't make sense to me. Like, and it wasn't just anyone who got sent off at the end of the day. It was Liverpool's captain and Virgil van Dijk. So that's a big, big player.
To me, the fact that Newcastle were leading a 10-man Liverpool and couldn't go through with the win, it's not promising looking when you're looking at a team who will be competing in the biggest European competition come September.
Yeah, I know people are saying, "Oh, like no offense, if you want to be competing with teams like Man City, you should be beating Liverpool at home." At the end of the day, Arsenal did last season, and they competed with Man City. Like, I know people say, like, Newcastle fans say, "Oh, but it's hard." They've only got 3 points. Let's be real. And I know they played Man City and Liverpool, but the Man City game, they didn't even look like they wanted to really win it, and the Liverpool game, they had it won and lost it. They've got Brighton away next. Say they don't get 3 points there, then what?
And you could argue it's fairly likely that Brighton could beat Newcastle the way they're playing, and with Newcastle having Sven Botman injured now as well.
Brighton will want to bounce back as well. So, I get why people are excited about Newcastle. As you know, I've not really been one for the hype with Newcastle. I don't think they've bought enough. I think that they'll obviously what's different. They haven't had to play European football for a long time. So how are they going to cope with that physical and psychological, like, week in, week out sort of job? So it'd be interesting. Interesting to see. But yeah, it's all right. People saying, "Oh, but they've had a hard start." Yeah, maybe they have, but if you want to be in that top three, well, they got top 4, so they'd want to stabilise that. But if they eventually want to get up to Man City title challenging, you can't complain. So, well, we've had an hard week, so that was it. It's ruthless. Like Arsenal, we threw it away. But the amount of big results we had to do last season to even be close to Man City, like, you look at it, we beat Liverpool, United, Chelsea, Tottenham, all at home. We even beat Newcastle away. Like, they're most of the top 4. So if you want to be title challenging with City, you have to go to those levels. And I just don't think Newcastle got it in them yet.
I think to say it's a hard week is just a lazy excuse for saying we were crap, to be honest. I mean, when you look at it, I think what Newcastle fans, because Newcastle rocketed. They went from relegation fight 2 seasons ago to top 4 finish last season. And I think what Newcastle fans will have to realise is that things are about to slow down for them now, because they're not going to progress at the same speed season upon season. And I think the beginning of this season is a bit of a bit of a awakening for Newcastle fans because it's not going to be that easy. They're aiming to compete in the higher echelons of the Premier League and European football. And I think what the fans are about to see is that you need to be consistent, but consistency at that high level is not always easy. And it will be interesting to see how they compete on two fronts, because that's what, a team like Manchester City, hurts me to praise them, but they're a team that know how to compete on both fronts because they've done it for such a long time. Newcastle, not done it often.
I think with Newcastle as well, I don't know if you agree here, but is that all the top teams have a proper playmaker. Like City have De Bruyne or Foden. Arsenal have Erdegaard and probably, I'd say, Saka. Even United, when they're on form, Bruno Fernandes and Rashford. Sorry. And even, like, you look at Liverpool, they've got Salah, but what Newcastle, really, what do they have? They have Almiron, and that's it for me. So if they wanted to spend big money, I think they need to bring like a proper playmaker in that can change games.
Newcastle have bought players, but I don't know. There's still, to me, a bit of a Europa League squad, and no offense.
There's not many Champions League based players in that squad for me. If you ask me to name 5, I think I'd struggle. I'd say Trippier, probably Bruno Guimaraes, Isak maybe. No, I'm struggling already. Sandro Tonali.
Tonali, definitely. But it's a hard one. I think I wouldn't be surprised if Newcastle would drop out into the Europa League fairly quickly. I don't think they will have it. And hey, to Newcastle fans dropping back to Europa League, that's still European football. That might be a success for them. You never know. But
this is like Newcastle fans, as you're listening to the show, if you disagree with us,
hey, come on. Yeah.
Like, come on. It'd be interesting to hear what you say. I know, Nick, you're a Newcastle fan. I know we do have a couple that watch, so come on.
It'll be good to see what Newcastle fans are thinking this season, because are you thinking you're going to have the same speed of progression as you did last season, or did you agree with us that it's going to slow down a bit? Tell us, I'd be interested.
I'll say I had this conversation, the same thing with United fans we had last season. And I asked this to Newcastle fans: if you finish out the top 4 but won a cup, is that a success for you? For me, I think it is.
Exactly, and it's how realistic the fans' expectations are. Because if the fans expect now for Newcastle to be finishing top 4 every season and winning a cup, you're going to have to slow down with your expectations. You overachieved last season, and I think that's not being unfair to Newcastle, because I don't think anyone gave Newcastle at the beginning of last season. There are some people that thought they'll finish 7th or 6th, but I don't think anyone expected top 4.
But the thing is that it's all about closing the gap to Man City. And that's even from an Arsenal bit. People say, we should be winning the league. But there's reasons Man City are where they are. We obviously won't go into them because they've not been sorted yet. But whatever way you look at it, they've still won 3-4 trophies, Premier League. So to close that gap to them, as a neutral fan, I'd love to see like a 3 or 4 horse race, like all going for the title. I think most neutral fans would. But if you said to me with Newcastle, week in, week out, do I think they're anywhere near Man City? Absolute nowhere near. And the way Arsenal started, I don't think we're near them at the minute. I don't think, as from the first 3 games, they look quite a bit far ahead already. But that's results change perspectives. So, but with Newcastle, if they done what they done last season but won the cup instead, that's success. And then you build on that. At the end of the day, they're going to come to a time, they're a bit like Arsenal, you come to a time where them players done really well for you when you was at that level, but you have to go to a different level to like those times I use Arsenal as an example that we had players like Hector Bellerin and all that were doing well for us at one stage, but then you have to move on from that. And I think Newcastle are going to have the same with people like Dan Burn. Don't get me wrong, good player, but is he Champions League left back? Do you think Dan Burn will deal well with when he comes up against people like Mbappe or all these other top European stars? I don't know. Like, I'm not saying he won't. I'm not saying he will, but maybe it's not a glamour player. I don't know, but I just don't. I don't know. I just don't think he's not. I'm not saying Newcastle have to buy all these stars, but because they don't. But
no, but you have to slowly improve, and they have improved, but they haven't improved as much as they overachieved last season.
No, like you look at, like I always go back to us, but we had Kieran Tierney. Like, I think Kieran Tierney is a very, very good player, but we improved by going and get Timber. Now that's just bad luck. Or we've improved with Ben White instead of, say, Bellerin or Cedric. Cedric Soares, but you know what I mean. Or like Declan Rice to Xhaka. Like, so you have to evolve. So that's what I mean with Newcastle. Like, I think Isak and Wilson are very good. Like, I don't think Callum Wilson gets the credit he deserves, but then there's a lot of injury problems with him. But apart from them two, if you said to me, was I scared of any of the others? No, not really. I'm not scared of Anthony Gordon or Almiron.
I think it'll be interesting to see with Newcastle. But yeah, Newcastle fans, please drop some comments in, because I'd be interested to hear what you think. And yeah, if you would like to come on the show and have a chat to us, do so. Whether it's about your current how you're doing, or whether it's the transfers. Now, before we close out the show, let's remind you that this Friday at from 8 o'clock we will be doing a live transfer deadline day special here on the channel, where people can come on and talk about their club's transfers. You can either come on the show live. If you are interested, drop us a message at Golden Goal TV on Facebook group or in WhatsApp, or drop a comment into the channel. But yeah, we would like to hear from people representing their clubs. You know, if you follow a club and you want to talk about their transfers, come on and do so, whether it's live or whether you want to record a video or a voice recording. We will play it out, because I think it'll be interesting to hear. And yeah, Newcastle's transfer window is one of them I would like to discuss, because on the Friday show, because it's interesting. You've overachieved, but have you then improved to the same standard to match your overachievement? Well, me and George don't think so, but you may think we're talking rubbish. So if you do, I'd like you to come on and tell us that and justify it, you know. So the show's happening on Friday from 8 o'clock. It will go until the close of the transfer window. So most likely it will go to about midnight. So you can pop in at any point. We will also after 11 o'clock open the show out to the fans as well. So if you aren't sure about coming on and then during the show you change your mind, you will be able to enter as well. So it will be very special. There'll be a lot happening. It'll be a busy one. You will get a notification when we go live. It will not be before. It'll be when the live stream starts. So subscribe to the channel. Like this video if you've watched it. Click the bell to receive notifications, because that would be important. We will share the link to the show as well once the show starts. But yeah, we want to hear from you, and we want you to be a part of this transfer deadline day special, because we're hoping it will be something that elevates the channel. So hopefully we will see you there. And yeah, that's it for today. Quite a long show, because it was just the two of us. Yeah. We did pretty well, I think. Plenty to discuss, in fact. So yeah, longer than I thought. But yes, we will be back for a very long show, and hopefully a very exciting one too. We'll be talking Tottenham, Arsenal, Chelsea. We'll be talking Southampton and Bournemouth possibly as well. We might have some fans from there. So if you want your club to be represented on the show, Instead of moaning, come moan on the show itself. Come represent your club and represent your thoughts of your club as a supporter from a supporter point of view. So yeah, that's it. George, where can people find you on X?
So on X you can find me at George AWFC.
And you can find me on at Hubert 3001. That is HUBERT 3001. And of course, we are at Golden Goal TV. So yeah, follow us on Twitter. You can join our Facebook group or WhatsApp group if you like. And of course, subscribe, like, share with your friends, and click the bell. Get them notifications in so you can join us when we start our Friday night stream. For now, though, from me and George, we'll see you all.